What's going on, guys? Topic for this video and today's discussion: how many guns and how much ammo should you have? Well, lots of folks like to put out their thoughts on the matter. Lots of folks can pontificate and wax pretty eloquent. A lot of folks give you all kind of different numbers. You need this number of firearms, you need this much ammo and this many mags for every gun, etc., etc. And I'm going to somewhat disagree with them, regardless of what their numbers are. And here's why. Because there's not a correct number. Did I just say that? Yes, I did. There is not a correct number as to how much of any of it you should have. So we're going to get into a couple of things on that and my reasoning behind why. And I'm going to give you my recommendation. Now, my recommendation is worth exactly what you paid to watch this video. I'll be right up front with you. It's just my recommendation. Okay? I would say that if you're just starting out, you're trying to get set, you need, and I hate the word need, but I'm going to say it, rather, you want to have, in my opinion, first off, you want a good handgun. Preferably in 9mm, preferably a common one. 45 is also acceptable. 9mm is what I highly recommend for a myriad of reasons. I also recommend that it be a 9mm Glock. There are other acceptable answers to that. Have a good 9mm handgun. Get, honestly, personally, I would say get anywhere from at least 5 magazines for it. 10's better. You have to. I mean, you have to have 10. You have to have 20. No. But I would say at least 5 magazines for the handgun. And then get at least about 500 rounds of ammo to store away. That doesn't count the ammunition that you keep loaded in the gun, that you practice with, and that you, more importantly, go and take classes with. But have you about 500 rounds of ammo put away. And contrary to all the popular opinions, and again, I'm a guy that don't know nothing, it can be simple 9mm ball ammo. It doesn't have to be the latest and greatest super nuclear tipped hollow points that blow the lungs out of somebody's chest. It can be just plain old ball ammo. Okay? And there's a lot of reasons why. I'm going to try not to delve into it in this video. But ball ammo is fine. Don't think otherwise. Not for everyday concealed carry. We're talking about storing away for a rainy day when things are bad and we ain't worrying about the mugger trying to rob us at the quickie store. Okay? Different context. Let me stop right there. This context is for longer term, really bad grid up, grid down, bad time stuff, right? Okay. So you got your good 9mm handgun, you got some mags for it, you got some ammo put away. I would recommend a general purpose rifle. be it a 16-inch carbine, or in this case a 14.5 with a pin flash pressure make it 16 inches, and a 1X type optic. In this case it's a Gen 2 primary arm Cyclops. This is an AR. If you prefer an AK, that's fine too. Personally, I recommend sticking with 5.56 AR, 7.62x39 AK. Reason being, magazine and ammo availability. Again, same as the handgun. Minimum of 5 mags for the gun. When it comes to the rifle, I like to have a whole lot more rifle mags than I do handgun mags, because this is going to be far more important to me than the handgun is. But minimum of 5, but as many rifle mags as you can afford to squirrel away. Ammo. Again, minimum of 500 rounds for the gun. More as you can get it, not counting what you train and practice with. Why an AR or an AK? Because they're the two most common and prolific guns in the continental United States. Parts, magazines, accessories, etc. are both commonly available. Why a 1X sight? Because we're just talking about a general purpose gun here. And I think that's where you need to have your headspace at starting out. Now, keeping with the topic, how many guns should I have? There's no right answer to that. Once you've got those two basics covered, okay, then you can start adding stuff as you can afford or see fit, and as you have other bases covered. Gear, equipment, radios, medical, food, water, clothing, yada yada. Do not think that if you've got a good 9mm handgun and a good AR and AK and the right equipment to go with it, and you've got all your other bases covered, that you're at some kind of a detriment to somebody who's got, 20 dozen different guns and 15,000 rounds of ammo put back. You're not. You're absolutely not. Especially if you've got some good practice time and training under your belt with those two firearms that you've got. You don't have to have all these other guns to go with it. Like some people say, you got to have a 22, you got to have a 12 gauge shotgun, you got to have, all this other stuff. In my humble opinion, no you don't. Because there's very little that I could want to do, generally speaking, that a good 9mm handgun and a 5.56 or 7.62x39 rifle won't do. Now, if you want to start expanding, my next recommendation would be your carbine that you've got, whichever one you choose to go with, AR, AK, whatever. Get you a second one and set it up as close to identical to that primary one as you can. Why? Because if something happens to this one, you lose it, it breaks, something goes wrong with it, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to pick up an identical gun and keep doing whatever you got to do with it. Not meaning that you're going to carry both of them on you. Just, I saw you typing that, just stop. You know that's not what I mean. Having two identical guns when you're on a limited situation, you're probably going to have limited training time. You want to keep them as much the same as you can. Now, once you've got that, depending on your situation, depending on where you're at, depending on all kind of different variables that could be unique to just you and not anybody else, is when you can start branching and looking into other things. Like, for example, you may want to put something together that's got some magnification to it. You might want to put something together for more longer range or shorter range, higher precision, etc. But it's not things you have to have. And don't feel like you've got to add X number of rounds for every additional firearm that you get. You don't. Now, we can run down a myriad of hypotheticals. I mean, we can come up with any scenario you can imagine to both advocate for and argue against all those points of having all the extra ammo, having all this. We can do that ad nauseum, and it's pointless. There's too many variables to take into account that can affect how things are going to go that we just don't know. You could have 500 rounds put back and might be able to, that might last you 10 years into a grid down apocalypse. You don't know. How might it last you that? Well, you might be really good at not getting into fights. You might get into a lot of fights because you've trained real good, though you're not expending a bunch of ammo because you're making every shot counting. The 4 or 5 bad guys that tried to take your stuff, out of the 4 that come at you, you fired 5 rounds and took 4 of them down. So you're only down 5 rounds for that engagement. That rate, 500 rounds lasts you a long time. You may have to mag dump, and all of a sudden you could burn through half your ammo in just one situation. Too many variables. Good chance that if you're skilled and practiced enough and smart enough, there'll be other ammo to collect off of those no longer using it. But you can't count on that either because there's too many variables as to why you might not be able to collect that ammo even though they're no longer using it. You see what I'm saying? There's no specific answer to this. So don't get frustrated or concerned or upset. Oh, I'm just getting started and I only got, a couple of 100 rounds. And you know what? That's okay. Be smart with your ammo. Learn how to be effective with your gun. Add what you can and grow with it. There's no magic number you need to work towards, in my opinion. I do recommend, unless you are well versed, okay, and have a lot of years of experience, I do recommend keeping your rifle and even your handgun platforms, if you're going to have multiples, different ones, of the same design, right? So like, if you're going to start out with an AR, unless you've got a lot of time and experience, etc., as you add rifles, keep them all ARs. You can configure them differently, but keep them as ARs. If you start out with AKs, keep them as AKs. If you start out with a Glock, stick with a Glock. If you start out with M&P, have you a full-size M&P, a compact M&P, full-size Glock, compact Glock, whatever. Keep things the same. It just makes it easier on the old brain. It also makes it easier on the logistics side of things for you, because then for the most part you've got parts commonality from one gun to the next, which logistics can be a big thing. Very big thing, okay? I'm just saying. That cup's almost empty. Now, I know some of you are already sitting there and you're going, John, you've got a whole bunch of guns. You showed us all kind of guns on video and stuff. You've got a whole slew of them. What are you sitting there saying we shouldn't have a bunch of guns and don't need to have all this, that, and the other? I'm showing you a lot of different guns because, A, I personally have a lot of time and experience since I was... There's not a time in my conscious memory that I haven't been shooting at some level. When I was young, my father had an early 70s, in fact 1973 if I remember correctly, made Colt AR-15. That's what I cut my teeth on, was a Glenfield 22 and a Colt AR-15. Like, he had to help me hold the guns up, right? So I've got a lot of years. I've had the fortune to spend a lot of time with some really, really great folks that have taught me a lot. I've gotten a lot of range time, and I feel comfortable running different guns. Now, even then, I only have 2 different kind of guns. I've got ARs and AKs. That's it. I have a bunch, but there's a couple of reasons for that. Just because I've got a bunch doesn't mean that I'm recommending to you that you go buy a bunch of guns. Quite the opposite. I'd rather you just have one of these and one handgun, learn how to use them really good and get set up to run them, than to waste your time and money on a whole safe full of guns. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive, but hear me out. I've got them because I've been able, after many, many years of accumulating them, but also due to my work, due to various situations of being in a position to be able to acquire different things, and a lot of the stuff I show you guys to give you options, to give you things that you can look at and see, oh, here's an idea for this, here's an idea for that, here's a brand that seems like it works good, here's another brand that works good at different price levels. I have a couple of primary guns that are my go-tos that I actually use all the time. Now, I get time on all of them, but when I seriously think I need a gun, I've got a couple that are my specific go-tos. And if I had to leave everything else behind, I would cry really hard, like bawl like a 4-year-old throwing a temper tantrum, but I would go and I would take my couple of go-tos with me, and that'd be it. So don't think that even somebody like me, that I'm just planning on taking everything. I also have, without giving away specific information, I also have ways of not having everything necessarily at one location, because I've got a couple of different locations that I could be at, and I can spread the wealth, so to speak, so that I've got stuff at point A, point B, point Z, point Y, point whatever. I also have some guns that are set up for very, very specific uses that fit within my personal situation of my friends, family, associates, etc. Which is why I'm not, you always hear me say when I'm showing a gun and the configuration, I don't do reviews. I'm showing you what I've got and why I've got it and what my specific context of use is for. That way you can look at it and evaluate if there's the same or a similar context or something that you could possibly benefit from something like that from. Doesn't mean I'm advocating or recommending that you've got to go have all the stuff that I've got. I'm not at all. Rest assured, with all the stuff I show you guys, if you've got a couple and you've got a good set of mags and ammo and equipment and training behind it, your chances are you're probably going to do pretty doggone good. Okay? Give you an example. If you had this gun right here, a primary arm Cyclop, it's a 14.5 inch pin and welded carbine. It's just a good general purpose functional AR. If all you had was this, my preferred favorite of a Glock, and you had a good set of mags and ammo, and you had good gear to go with it, had got some good classes under your belt, had spent time practicing what you learned in training on your own, very high likelihood you will be just fine with this setup in probably 90%, even more, of the situations that you could potentially find yourself in. Okay? Do not feel like you've got to have all these different various setups. Now, again, are there benefits to having them? At some point, yes. As you can look into those. But you don't have to. There's no set number of guns you've got to have. There's no set amount of ammo you've got to have. You get what you can as you can. I have recommendations, and again, I gave those to you. I like having at least 5, preferably more magazines for each gun. Magazines, I honestly like to have more magazines than just about anything else, because that's going to be one of the riskiest things that could either go bad, get damaged, or you could lose. And you can have all the ammo in the world, but if you don't have any more of these, then this becomes a real fancy single shot gun that's pretty slow and cumbersome to reload. So the more mags the better, but there's not a set number. I don't care who says it, there's not a set number. Minimum of 5. If you can get 50, great. Anywhere plus or minus from that, great. So many times people like to put up videos and they go on about this stuff about how much you got to have, what all you got to have, and they never give context. They're usually talking from their own personal situation or biases, and don't give the context, because everybody's context might be different. Everybody's situation might be different, and as you've heard me say all the time anyway, there's so many variables specific to situation, terrain, weather, events. I mean, the list goes on, right? Don't get discouraged when you see that. Now, that's not to mean you can't watch other people's videos that do that and take away points of information. I'm not saying that. You can. You absolutely can. Just don't get discouraged by it when that starts to become the case and you hear those very specific numbers being tossed around. Okay, I hope that all makes sense. Biggest thing is that you're actively getting ready, you're actively getting prepared, you're actively training, and then you're actively practicing and being ready. Okay? Again, it's worth exactly what you paid for to watch it. You guys take care, stay safe, tick-tock. I'll see you later.